Crawford beats Canelo because I think the way
Terence Crawford versus Canelo Alvarez is a matchup that has sparked intense debate among boxing fans, pundits, and insiders alike. As of March 6, 2025, the conversation around this potential super fight continues to heat up, fueled by conflicting opinions from prominent figures like Eddie Hearn and Bernard Hopkins. At its core, the debate hinges on weight classes, legacies, and the risk-reward dynamics for both fighters. Crawford, widely regarded as one of the best pound-for-pound boxers in the world, has been eyeing a clash with Canelo, the undisputed super middleweight champion at 168 pounds. However, many question whether Crawford's ambition to jump multiple weight classes could lead to a brutal reality check against a naturally bigger, stronger opponent. Eddie Hearn, a well-known promoter, recently made waves with a bold prediction. He believes Canelo Alvarez would brutally knock out Terence Crawford if the two met at 168 pounds. Hearn acknowledges Crawford's brilliance, particularly his defensive mastery and reliance on movement, but he argues that these skills won't hold up against Canelo's power and physicality at super middleweight. Hearn expects Crawford to stick to his usual strategy, evading punches and countering with precision, but doubts it will be enough to overcome the size disparity. For Hearn, the fight represents a fascinating spectacle, but one that could end badly for Crawford. On the other side of the discussion, former professional boxer Bernard Hopkins has taken a more critical stance, questioning the value of this matchup entirely. Hopkins argues that a fight with Crawford offers little upside for Canelo. In his view, Canelo has bigger, more meaningful challenges ahead, and facing a smaller fighter like Crawford, who started his career at 130 pounds, doesn't enhance Canelo's legacy. Hopkins goes further, expressing genuine concern for Crawford's safety. He warns that moving up to 168 pounds to face a fighter as physically imposing as Canelo is a dangerous gamble, one that could see Crawford risking his life against an opponent capable of competing with cruiserweights. For Hopkins, this isn't just about boxing, it's about survival. The weight issue looms large in this debate. Crawford has already climbed through multiple divisions, winning titles at lightweight, 135 pounds, super lightweight, 140 pounds, and welterweight, 147 pounds. He's now campaigning at 154 pounds, where he's set to face Israil Madrimov in an upcoming bout for the WBO interim and WBA super welterweight titles. A jump to 168 pounds would mark his fifth weight class, a leap that Hearn and Hopkins both see as potentially disastrous. Hearn has pointed out that Crawford's history of moving up could eventually catch up with him, especially against a seasoned 168-pounder like Canelo, who often rehydrates well above the weight limit by fight night, potentially tipping the scales at 175 or even 185 pounds. Hopkins, meanwhile, contrasts the Crawford fight with a matchup he considers far more logical, Canelo versus David Benavidez. He argues that Benavidez, a natural super middleweight with a similar frame and fighting style to Canelo, presents a competitive and meaningful challenge. Fans, Hopkins believes, would overwhelmingly prefer this fight over a Crawford bout, given Benavidez's long-standing pursuit of Canelo and his status as a top contender. For Hopkins, pitting a 140-pound fighter like Crawford against a 168-pound champion is a mismatch that dilutes the sport's integrity. He's even suggested an alternative for Crawford, a fight against Jaron Boots Ennis, an undefeated Philadelphia native who's earned a shot at greatness. Hopkins sees this as a more realistic stepping stone for Crawford before chasing bigger names like Canelo. The financial allure of a Canelo-Crawford fight, however, cannot be ignored. For Canelo, every bout is a business decision, and he reportedly has a specific payday in mind for each opponent. Hearn has noted that Canelo isn't particularly eager to fight Crawford, questioning what he'd gain from beating a smaller fighter. Casual fans might not care about weight classes, they just want to see two big names collide, but Canelo knows a victory over Crawford wouldn't earn him the same credit as defeating a natural 168-pounder like Benavidez. Still, if the money aligns with his expectations, Canelo is unlikely to turn it down. For Crawford, the fight could net him upwards of $50 million, a life-changing sum that might justify the risk, even if it means putting his health and legacy on the line. Crawford's immediate focus, though, is on Israil Madrimov. The two share a friendly rapport, recently seen running together during training, but Hearn believes Madrimov poses a legitimate threat. He describes Madrimov as a powerful puncher with a strong chance of upsetting Crawford, potentially derailing his Canelo dreams. Hearn has praised Crawford's ring IQ and pound-for-pound credentials, but wonders if 154 pounds might be one weight too many for the former lightweight champion. If Madrimov lands a decisive blow, it could mark the end of Crawford's unbeaten record and his aspirations of facing Canelo. Crawford, for his part, remains unfazed. In a recent interview, he dismissed speculation about Canelo, emphasizing his focus on Madrimov. "I'm not thinking about Canelo," he said, underscoring his commitment to the task at hand. When asked about Canelo's upcoming fight with Edgar Berlanga, Crawford was blunt. He predicts Canelo will stop Berlanga with ease. While he recognizes Berlanga's talent and potential, Crawford believes the undefeated contender isn't ready for a fighter of Canelo's caliber. As for Madrimov, Crawford admits he's stepping into the unknown. He hasn't faced Madrimov before, but he's confident in his ability to adapt, citing the power, footwork, and head movement his opponent brings to the ring. "I'm a different kind of animal," Crawford declared, signaling his readiness for the challenge. Madrimov, meanwhile, is equally confident. He sees the fight as an opportunity to claim Crawford's greatness and elevate his own status. When pressed about Crawford's weaknesses, Madrimov kept his cards close, promising that everything would be revealed on fight night. He also brushed off talk of a Canelo fight, insisting that his plans will become clear once he defeats Crawford. Should he win, Madrimov hinted at targeting the biggest names possible, including Canelo at 168 pounds. The broader boxing community remains divided. Sports commentator Jim Lampley, a longtime Crawford fan, believes the Nebraskan is the world's top pound-for-pound fighter. He recalls narrating Crawford's breakout performance against Brytus Prescott years ago and sees a potential Canelo fight as a historic, lucrative showdown. However, Lampley cautions that Crawford won't be able to hurt Canelo the way he dismantled Errol Spence Jr., given Canelo's renowned punch resistance. Crawford's coach, Brian Bomac McIntyre, echoes this focus on the present, dismissing Canelo talk as premature. He views Madrimov as a dangerous opponent and insists that Crawford's team is taking no chances. Former boxer Sean Porter, who retired after losing to Crawford in 2021, offers a unique perspective. He describes facing Crawford as the toughest 10 rounds of his career, a testament to Bud's elite skills. Yet Porter warns that Madrimov's power and agility could trouble Crawford. Despite the disparity in their professional experience, Crawford nearing 40 fights, Madrimov at 10 or 11, Porter cautions against underestimating Madrimov, noting that amateur pedigrees often level the playing field. Eddie Hearn's skepticism about a Canelo-Crawford fight persists. He calls it a fantasy fight, doubting it will materialize due to the weight gap. He predicts Canelo would outweigh Crawford by a significant margin on fight night, rendering the matchup uncompetitive. Hearn also justifies Canelo's next fight against Berlanga, a mandatory challenger, as a necessary step, though he admits it's not an ideal stylistic clash. In contrast, he sees Canelo versus Benavidez as a blockbuster that never came to fruition, partly due to financial disagreements and Benavidez's move to light heavyweight. Hopkins' critique of boxing's direction adds another layer. He laments the rise of desperate moves like Crawford, comparing them to UFC gimmicks and celebrity boxing. For him, the sport is losing its meaning by prioritizing hype over substance. He'd rather see Crawford prove himself against Ennis than chase a paycheck against Canelo. If this is just about making $50 million, Hopkins said, people need to understand he's risking everything. The stakes couldn't be higher for Crawford. A win over Madrimov keeps his Canelo dream alive, but a loss could halt his momentum and invite questions about his ability to compete at higher weights. For Canelo, the decision is simpler: fight who pays the most, legacy be damned. Fans, meanwhile, are left to speculate. Would they rather see Canelo face Crawford or Benavidez? Does Crawford's ambition outweigh the risks? As the boxing world watches Crawford's next move, one thing is clear: the road to Canelo is fraught with danger, and the reward might not be worth the cost.